everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. This is America's first sake podcast, and I am your host, John Puma from the Sake Notes. Also, I run that little corner of the internet called the Internet Sake Discord, as well as Reddit's r/sake community.
And I'm your host, Timothy Sullivan. I'm a sake samurai, sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and chatting about all things sake and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
Tim, I do tell you I like it when you bring friends along, and I couldn't help but notice for the second time in 3 weeks, we've got some guests here with us. We've got some people in the Zoom. And I don't think you've just been giving out the Zoom link. I think you actually know these people.
Yes, we have some wonderful guests with us today. And it is my pleasure to introduce Kayoko Akabori and Yoko Kumano, who are the co-founders of Umami Mart, which is, as you probably very well know, a fantastic online and retail shop, as well as a sake bar in Oakland, California.
Yes.
It specializes in Japanese barware, kitchen goods, ceramics, and it also has an outstanding selection of sake for sale. Umami Mart opened as a shop in 2012 and has become a beacon of sake for the Bay Area. Welcome, Kayoko and Yoko, to the show. Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Hello, welcome. Now, before we get into it, Tim, have you ever had the pleasure of making your way down to Umami Mart?
Oh, have I ever?
Have you ever?
I have known.
That was the question.
I've known Kayoko and Yoko for years, and we actually did an event together, sake and cheese pairing, a few years back. And I always make sure to visit Umami Mart whenever I'm in the Bay Area. And John, you've been there as well, too.
I visited the one time I was ever in the Bay Area. I will say that when I visited, the first thing I noticed was the bar in the back, and I was like, wow, in New York, this would be extraordinarily illegal. You can't do that here. This is great. And so we kind of made a beeline for it and enjoyed the idea that you can taste things and then buy a bottle of something that you enjoyed. I think that's a really fun and exciting thing I got to do there.
Yeah, thanks for coming through. It was good to meet you, John. And I just want to say that Timothy and I go way back to when we still had cubicle jobs. And Umami Mart was a food blog, and Yoko was contributing from Tokyo, and I was in New York, and I met up with Timothy, who had a sake website called urbansake.com, and Umami Mart went to one of his seminars at the Astor Center, where he was presenting a talk on sake, and that must have been... Timothy, that must have been 2006. So, yes, I think we were both just sort of burgeoning bloggers. And this is, we've come a long way.
This is the Paleolithic era of sake blogging.
Yes. Hey, now, technically, a little look behind the curtain. I actually met Tim at one of Tim's seminars at Astor.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. So we're here. We're talking about sake because this is Sake Revolution. So I need to ask you two how you got into sake. What was the moment where you were like, wait a minute, there's something to this? What's the aha moment for you two?
For me, it was while I was living in Tokyo. I lived in Tokyo from 2005 to 2010, and
nice.
Yeah, and sake was always around, and even growing up, it's like I knew about sake. Japanese American, so it's around. But I went to a sushi spot in Sakura Josui, which is like in Western Tokyo. And the sushi master there at Dannan, he has a very, very short sake list, which was so helpful. And one of the sakes that I got was the Shinkame, the Junmai. And that absolutely changed my life. That was the aha moment. It's in Junmai. It's so ricey. It's aged for 2 or 3 years. It just has this really earthy, but like super umami feel to it. And I was really hooked after that because I think until then I was either having futsushu or it was like ginjos and daiginjos. And so I just really having that very, very full flavored junmai it changed my life.
Wow. And Kyoko?
My father loves sake. My mother is more of a shochu drinker. And then my dad has always had his bottle of sake at home. And, he growing up, he would always tell me that he's a junmai guy. He likes his really rough junmais. But I think Yoko and I would agree that he's actually a ginjo guy.
I have a lot of respect for the Genjo guys out there.
So I think, getting into this line of work too is it's been fun for me to get to know sake and just the differences and just talking to my dad about sakes.
So you inherited the shochu gene from one parent and the sake
yes,
gene from the other parent.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a little bit of both. I'm so lucky.
Awesome. Great.
Nice.
Now, in August 2022, you had your 10-year anniversary of your shop, Umami Mart. Now, there must have been a lot of ups and downs and maybe a pandemic along the way. So we'd love to hear your best memories and maybe what some of the challenges were over the last 10 years. What stands out in your memory?
Oh, gosh.
Kayoko, should we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Yoko and I joke that we're basically like a married couple. We've sort of done it all together. We've traveled to a lot of different countries together, and now it's all everything that we did is kind of a fuzzy, distant memory, and it's all kind of like a big glob. But we've kind of tried it all at this point, and so 10 years later, we're sort of distilling what we've learned and then what we love to do. And we're just, kind of going with what we do best. And I think, we always started out, we always had community events and parties and from the very beginning and inviting all of our friends from wherever they may be. Of course, Timothy, you came out for our first sakeso dinner, which is our sake and cheese pairing that we now do every year. But yeah, we've learned so much, I think, over the years about what works and what doesn't work. Of course, we had the great panini along the way in 2020 that sort of halted things. And then, of course, we learned a lot during that time about what worked for us. And we started out as a blog and we have always been online. And so we weathered the pandemic. And we are very fortunate for that. But I think what keeps us going is just doing the in-person events as well.
Yoko, any special memories or anything from the last 10 years that stand out?
Yeah, I think that one particular memory I really remember, we started out in our Oakland shop downtown, and we got into that spot because there was a initiative during that time. That was 2012, and we were still coming out of the recession. And the city had partnered with some of the landlords here, and they were offering 6 months rent-free to people who wanted to try out their vision. And so Kayoko and I answered the ad for that, and they accepted our proposal, and we went into this really cute spot on Broadway at 8th. And we were there for the first 6 months rent-free. And the deal was that if you were, succeeding in that spot, you would sign a lease after those 6 months. And we had a big signing party, and that was super fun. We had champagne, and we just celebrated in the store. And we had filled in one eye of a daruma prior when we moved in, and then we filled in the other one on that day. So that was a really pivotal moment. It's kind of more of a fresh memory, but the 10-year anniversary that we had, we always have a matsuri in our parking lot. And last year we had our matsuri and celebrated with a sake that our local brewery here, Den Sake, they brewed for us. We called it an extreme junmai, and it it used California rice that was polished to 90%, so only 10% removed. And so we did like a kagamiwari and invited a bunch of food vendors. And yeah, I think it's those parties and the community coming out. Those are the memories that really stand out.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, I know that we talked about how When I got there, I was mostly excited about seeing the bar, but you guys also sell a lot of barware, kitchen goods, etc. You guys are more than just sake. So, what do you guys sell? What kind of stuff can we get there?
Yeah, so we started out, as Kayoko mentioned, as a food blog. And we had a blogger on there, Payman, and he was a pretty prolific bartender. And so there were a lot of recipes for cocktails online. And when we started our online store, he had suggested some key barware items that, him and his colleagues were trying to get stateside. And so Kayoko and I went through that list and then also like added stuff that we wanted and then started to import that barware as our main line of items into the store. So we still have a lot of barware, and that's really how we started with the barware. And from there, we kind of expanded. There was like a lot of drink related things. So glassware, ceramics, teawares. And once we opened our physical location in Oakland, not everybody is in the market for, a silver cobbler shaker from Japan. So we added like little condiments and soy sauce, Kewpie mayo, but also little snacks. And then also things like coasters and mugs and little gifty items that still do really well in the store. And so especially during the holidays, we do sell a lot of little gifts and things like that. Most everything that we sell is made in Japan, which we've always stuck to, but it's getting harder and harder to source, those products. And then maybe about like 5 to 10% is like locally made. So we have a few like artisans or makers that make Japanese inspired food products or textiles, things like that. So that's kind of, we really have a huge range of things in addition to the sake, the shochu, and the whiskey.
That's awesome. And that's all available online. So it's really fun to go on your website and browse what your latest things you've brought over from Japan. And it's also beautiful. You guys have a really good eye for design as well. So it's not just like any old ochoko or tokuri. It's really beautifully selected. So I encourage our listeners to go check it out.
That's so nice.
So on to sake. You have an amazing sake selection in your shop, and I'd love to hear more about that. What types of sake you're selling, what types of sake you promote to customers, and if I could hear from each of you, 1 or 2 sakes that you have in the shop that you're really excited about right now.
So our sake selection is very varied. A lot of people come in and they say, oh, wow, you have a lot of Yamahai and Kimotos. And that's kind of my fault. I do, I'm like a Junmai person. I love also the yogurty kind of like more high acid that happens in the Yamahais and Kimotos. I like those earthy, mushroomy flavors. I also think those flavors do really well with the cuisine here. People, are coming in, and I love it when they're like, I'm going to have roast chicken tonight. What should I have with my sake? Of course, a lot of people do come in saying, oh, I'm having an omakase dinner. What should I get? And I wouldn't particularly recommend, a Kimoto or a Yamahai in some cases for that. But for a lot of the foods that we enjoy here, like butter-based or, even like shellfish and things like that, I'm in the habit of recommending lots of Kimotos and Yamahais to people. And I just love that flavor palette. It's like very rustic and very interesting.
All right. Yoko, thank you so much. And Kayoko, what about you? What are a couple sakes you have or styles that you like from your selection?
I love honjozos. So I love, ginjos and honjozos. Daiginjos, I can have a little bit, but I can't have too much of that. But yeah, I love a nice fortified, easy to drink honjozo. I can drink it all day. It's what's in my fridge. There's one that I like very much. And actually, it's a shop favorite for all of our staff as well, called Atago no Matsu from Nizawa.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a great value bottle. I recommend it to 90% of our customers. It's definitely what I like to drink after work. It's always in my door fridge. It's just easy drinking, and that's what I love most about Honjozos. And in fact, somebody told me once that Honjozos are for real sake drinkers. And so, and so I like to drink. So I think that that's what it is.
One of the sakes that I'm really excited about right now and have been maybe for the past 6 months is the Daishi Rakutenmei. That one is made in Kyoke, the traditional vats, the wooden vats. And I just really like the full flavor. It has some kind of like floral aromas, but then it has like a little bit of this like cheesiness to it, a little bit of banana. And drinks a little bit like a sherry. Yeah, it just has a lot of personality. And I find myself bringing that to dinner parties a lot, because it kind of changes the way people think about sake.
Nice. Now, I heard a little bird told me you guys actually have your own house brand of sake over at Umami Mart, and I think that's kind of awesome. And so Timothy was able to procure us some of that, and so we're going to take a moment here and we're going to taste it with our guests today.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we get into the tasting, we have to hear the story of how this came about. Not every sake shop has their own house branded sake. So you have Umami Mart Junmai Sake, and it's from Kita Shuzo in Shiga Prefecture. Can you tell us how you connected with them and how you had this special sake made for your shop?
Yeah, so we met the brewer in a very, kind of like a standard fashion of like a retail store owner meeting a brewer. It was like at a sake convention type of situation. And we saw Mayuko, who is now the Toji of Kita Shuzo, standing behind her booth. And I think there was like a break in her visitors because no one was in front of her booth. And we just gravitated towards her. You also don't come across a lot of women in the sake industry in a lot of those shows. So we were just kind of like, hey, who's this girl, and so we just went over to talk to her because she also was like looking at us, and we just went over, and she was so friendly, and we just hit it off. And she said, oh, well, you should come to Shiga, to my family's brewery. And we were like, okay. It was like, within like 5 minutes or maybe less, when we had tried her sakes and we were just talking about her sakes and her process. And she was saying that currently at the time, she was not the Toji. She is the daughter in the family, but she wasn't the Toji yet. And she was in charge of the koji making. So we were really talking a lot about the koji and how she had been experimenting with letting the koji cultivate for longer. So she lets the koji cultivate for about 50 hours versus the 40 hours or so that's more standard, to bring up more kind of umami and more of those rice flavors. So then she was like, well, why don't you come to Shiga and like look at my koji room? And so then it was probably like 6 months later, Kayoko and I were like, hey, we're at the station at my in Shiga. Can you pick us up? It was so fun, and I helped her make koji. We started to just talk about collaborating after that, after having visiting Umami Mart and us visiting her brewery. And I mean, naturally, because we are Umami Mart, we wanted something with a lot of umami, something a little dry as well, as Kayoko and I are kind of dry too. Yeah. And so we just started running with it. And she's just so easy to work with and up for anything. And we were just really lucky to have been able to become friends with her and also work with her in the capacity that we have been. And now she is the Toji and is just making lots of fun ideas come true in her brewery. We actually just went to go see her in January. We're continuing the conversation of potentially another one. But
Oh.
yeah,
Ooh.
yeah.
That's breaking sake news right here on the
Yes.
podcast.
Yes.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Wow, what a great story. It sounds like it unfolded very organically.
Yeah.
Well, John, do you want to give us the stats for the Umami Mart Junmai?
Tim, I would love to. So yes, as you mentioned, this is the Umami Mart Junmai. Has a nice ring to it. It is from Kita Shuzo in Shiga Prefecture. It is, of course, a Junmai using Yamara Nishiki milled down to 60% and Gin Fubuki down to 60% as well. The ABV is between 16 and 17%. The sake meter value, that measure of dry to sweet, is a +3, and the acidity is a very reasonable 1.7.
Thank you, John.
I try to spice it up.
All right. So John and I both have a sample of the Umami Mart Junmai, and we're going to pour that in our glass now.
Let's
I'm
do
going to
it.
join you.
Please,
Me too.
absolutely.
Yay.
This is definitely our favorite.
I feel like when I was over there, you guys were out of this.
Yeah. Yes. We
So
often,
I don't think I got to try it.
we often get this, and we have dry spills because we have a lot of repeat Umami Mart Junmai customers, which makes us so happy.
Ooh.
All right. Well, we've got it in the glass, and there is just a hint of a golden color here. It's not crystal clear water white. It's got just a hint of color, and let's give it a smell. So I don't know if you guys want to walk us through how you usually introduce this to customers. I smell something a little bit that has kind of a creamy note to it, kind of pillowy, and some umami notes on the nose. So it's a good opening salvo here for our Umami Mart sake.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things that we wanted for this sake was to have that pronounced rice quality, but it's not so sweet. The umami is there. Sometimes, today I'm getting a little bit of raisin bread as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting custard. There's a little bit of a lactic note there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lovely creaminess, and Kayoko, I agree, like a lactic character, but it's very smooth overall. There's no sharpness to this aroma. It's nice and rounded, and really has kind of a pillowy, luscious quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
Should we give it a taste?
Yeah.
All right.
Please.
Really nice. I am picking up on rice on the palate, so there's some riciness there. Again, the texture is just really great. It's soft and pillowy, and there's a dryness on the finish, which is such a good balance to any flavors you get on the mid palate. When you have that dry finish, it's just what sake does best, I really think. And there's such a good example of that. You must have a lot of fun ideas for pairing this sake. What are your favorite recommendations for pairing the Umami Mart Junmai with your favorite dishes?
Yeah, so one of the big parts of making this sake, Kayoko and I wanted something that would pair well with a lot of things. So we wanted something versatile. I love French fries, and these do well with French fries. I'm going to tell you that. And I also the other day I had black cod with it. I like making saikyo miso gindara. It's really good with that. I also I love pasta, so I have it a lot with pasta. So pesto pasta is really good with it.
Yeah, I can imagine having a kind of something with anchovy in it would sound really good to me with this.
Like clams too.
Clams, yeah, or an umami-driven tomato sauce with a little bit of a just an umami-driven pasta sounds really, really great. The Parmesan cheese would pair really well with this as well. It's not a complicated sake. The flavors are very well rendered, but they don't overpower. And I feel that that's what makes this such a good food pairing sake too.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a place for fancy sakes,
Yes.
but I think that we really wanted to have our dream house sake in this bottle. And so, yeah, like what you said, it's like, it's the sake that you can have on the weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the dry finish. It's just in a good way, takes like the supporting role to the meal, which is quite nice. But also really good when we serve it at the bar, chilled in a glass. It's just really satisfying.
Yeah, this definitely comes across as something that is going to be friendly with all kinds of foods like you guys described, but also, as you point out, this is very sippable. This is something you can just drink. It's really nice. This is so versatile. That's one of the things I'm really liking about it personally. I like a sake that can do a little bit of everything. It seems like it's definitely right there.
It's also great at any temperature. So that's really nice to showcase, to have a sake where we could showcase at the bar different temperatures according to the weather. You know, I personally like sakes at room temperature, and this one is awesome. Room temperature, you know, you get a little bit more of the yogurty notes, and then you get good texture, and it's a nice balance with the dryness. So I think it does really well at all temperatures as well.
So we've got to ask now, what's next for Umami Mart? You know, apart from, our little scoop earlier about maybe another sake.
We always have a lot going on. Yoko and I like to keep super busy. We're traveling to Japan a lot now that it's a little bit easier to get over there. So, hopefully more collaborations with the Japan side. We have a variety of products, like Yoko said. So it's, cocktail, barware. So we go to Niigata for that. We go all around Japan for sake. And then for shochu, we go down to Kyushu. So we make some friends along the way. We'd love to bring in some more ceramics. And what I said earlier with the events, we're going to keep going with lots of events with friends from all over. We've got kind of like a bar takeover sort of lineup happening with Wakaze is coming to Umami Mart from Paris. And that's happening at the end of February. We're planning a few very exciting events in May with a bar in New York and then izakaya in Kagoshima that will be popping up at Umami Mart, hopefully. So we should have details on that soon, but that's not until May. But, follow Umami Mart on Instagram and get on our newsletter for the latest details on that. And we also are, we started out as a pop-up, and so we're constantly doing pop-ups. We had a pop-up in Chicago, several years ago. We did a pop-up in LA. We would love to make it over to New York for a pop-up, except at New York and its pesky laws about how you can't sell wares along with alcohol. So that is a little bit of an issue that we don't have here in California, of course.
We have a lot of dumb laws here. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
WTF, New York.
Yeah, well, California does too. But that one was kind of a big one because, we can't, the tasting room concept and then the sake shop is a huge part of our program. So.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned Instagram and your website. Let our listeners know where they can get in touch with you if they want to buy the Umami Mart Junmai for themselves or check out your barware or follow you on the socials. Let us know where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. umamimart.com. And that's almost everything is online. We ship sakes everywhere nationwide, except for maybe 3 states. Of course, there's our club. We have a sake club called Sake Gumi that ships nationwide as well. That's a club that Yoko does every month. 2 bottles under 1 theme. So you can find that information on umamimart.com and at Umami Mart on the Instagrams. We're very active on Instagram. And then I write the email newsletter every week. So please sign up for the email newsletter, and you can do that at our website as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And of course, we will have all the links to connect with Umami Mart on our show notes. So if you want to find any of the other socials we spoke about, be sure to check out our show notes at sakerevolution.com. Kayoko, Yoko, thank you so much for visiting with us today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
So much for having us.
Thank you guys so much. And I also want to thank our patrons. If you would like to learn more about supporting Sake Revolution, you can join our Patreon. We have a wonderful community there, and to learn more, visit patreon.com/Sake Revolution.
And if you'd like to support us in other ways, you can also go to Apple Podcasts and write us a review. Writing reviews on podcast platforms really does raise the awareness of our show in the algorithm, and gets our show in front of new eyes, which gets it into their ears. And so we really appreciate when you guys do that.
And if you would like to review all the information about Umami Mart, visit our show notes, and you can get all the links there. And also we'll have a full transcript of today's episode as well.
And so without any further ado, please grab a glass of Umami Mart Chunmai. Remember to keep drinking sake and
Come on.